Welcome to Unapologetically Sensitive, where you can learn, relate, laugh, and maybe even live a bolder, brighter life. I'm your host, Patricia Young. This is a weekly podcast where we explore the strengths we have because of our sensitivity and some of the challenges it poses as well. The information in this podcast is not a substitute for help from a licensed mental health professional. Hey there. To the creatives, healers, sensitives, and deep thinkers, how the heck are you? You should be hearing this. We are at the beginning of May 2024. How's your year going? Can't believe the year is going by so quickly. This episode with Jen, I'm feeling like I shouldn't even be recording the intro and outro, but let me try and tell you what we talked about. If you've listened to the last two episodes, which I think are 242 and 241, a lot of my attachment injuries are coming up. Now I learned that I have OCD. Yay. And Jen and I have another really candid conversation about what's going on for me, how I'm being impacted by this, how I'm navigating it, the gremlins that are coming up for me. It's a pretty vulnerable episode, and I'm really in my stuff right now. I am not at my baseline. I do not feel solid in who I am, but I think it's a beautiful conversation. Just to give you a heads up that towards the end, I'm tearful throughout the conversation. And then I realize as we're recording that I'm physically feeling very dysregulated, and my nervous system is like, I get ready where I feel like I just want to jump out of my skin. And towards the end of the episode, I say that and I get tearful, and I have a message for you, the listeners, that it's really okay and that I'm okay. And Jen offers to close out the session and we say goodbye. I feel very good about this episode. I do have questions like, why am I sharing so much with people that I don't know? And it makes me feel incredibly vulnerable. And I'm going to say again that my hope is that it models to you that it's okay to be in your stuff and dysregulated. And we don't get to see this stuff very often. And for today, I'm willing to share it with you. Maybe what I'll do is come on at the end of in the outro and let you know, because it is now almost, I don't know, maybe 45 minutes since we stopped recording, and Jen, I had a good cry. We stopped recording. I had a really good cry and Jen listened, and then we had a pretty amazing conversation. So maybe what I'll do is I'll come in the outro and let you know a little bit more about that. So this is about attachment wounds, healing, projection, putting our stuff on others, my fear, my anger, and how I think Jen is angry at me when I'm actually angry at her, but it's easier for me to get in touch with fear. I talk about my fear of leaving the relationship. These are all gremlins. We're solid and good at this point, but lots of friendship stuff. And I know that I'm not the only one that goes through this, especially if you're autistic, if you are ADHD, if you're neurodivergent, if you identify as any of those things. We generally have challenges in relationships. So my hope is that this is very helpful. And now on to the show. Hey, Jen, how are you?
Hi, my dear. Oh, how am I? Let me see if I can give you a real answer. I'm okay. I had one of those moments more like yesterday where I didn't realize how much worry I was kind of carrying in my system. Both of my kids have been a little under the weather, and I always feel, I don't know, just worried. And I know they're okay, but it registers somewhere like deep in my nervous system. So I'm just noticing some relief there as they're turning the corner on their illnesses. And how else am I? I'm good. I'm well rested, and my self-care has been up a notch, and certainly some things in my life that I'm enjoying a lot right now. Mm-hmm. And things are busy life.
Yeah.
But I'm okay. I was just talking to someone about how there's like a lot of things that I'm sort of putting on pause right now, and trying to get my basics solid and all that self-care. And then I also have these like things sort of hanging out here that I'd like to be able to tackle at some point in the near future. Mm-hmm. But it's a balancing act, right? Between busy and then too busy and then just busy enough.
Yeah.
And suddenly my birthday is like right here.
I know.
And right? It's like, whoa, how'd that happen? So life is full and has some nice fun and some, certainly its share of worries too. How are you, my dear?
Oof. I'm well. Ooh, I'm teary. I've been very teary recently, so it doesn't surprise me. I'm doing really well, and I'm working through some major attachment stuff, and it's hard, and I'm very tearful. I'm also realizing that I've got some OCD around my thoughts. So it's a very internalized presentation of OCD. Whether it's clinical enough to be diagnosable, I don't know. But my coach and I have been talking about it, and we talked about it more yesterday when we met. And it seems to be more situational and more triggered around my attachment wounds. And because there's so much coming up right now, some things between you and I got triggered that have very little to do with you, but are activating a lot of stuff from me. My son being in boot camp, it's 10 weeks long. He's halfway through now. And we get 3 phone calls while he's gone. And there was a delay in getting letters from him. So for a whole week, we didn't hear from him. And there are some things that I really am not at liberty to talk about, but some major shifts and changes. Not having information has been really, really hard for me. And when the attachment wounds from my trauma come up and the OCD, it's been a really, really hard couple of days. And I see how my thinking and my awareness about things just changes. And it's not what my baseline is. It doesn't last for forever, but I've had to work incredibly hard with my internal parts and kind of some cognitive restructuring around what the reality is that's going on, but it's been challenging. And I'm up for the task. And I just want to say it's really hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sure is.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
It is. And before we started to record, and then you started to talk, and I'm like, hold up, I think I want to wait until we're recording for this. Because I said, is it okay with you if I talk about some of the thoughts that come up for me when we don't communicate? Because I didn't want you to be surprised or caught off guard. Do you recall what you said?
I think I made a comment that I was both sorry, right? To be I know better than to say that I'm the cause, certainly the catalyst for some of this, right? But also that I'm honored, that feels like in friendship and in relationship that it's to me, I know it's going to sound a little corny, but I mean it very sincerely. It's kind of a sacred role.
Mm-hmm.
I think that it's, especially the fact that we're able to talk about it, there's a lot of safety here, that some of these things can surface, right? They can come up for healing. And then I gave an example from my history where there was another friend, where she had gone through something really difficult and tragic. And I was there for her, like really wouldn't leave her side. And maybe that was part of it, because I guess that could be a little much. But, I was the person that she could be mad at, even there was nothing apparent, like it was like for breathing kind of a thing. But she was in such a grief process. And who are you going to be mad at, right? Yeah. It's like it's hard to land a punch anywhere. And when I realized that was something I could actually do for her, like a function, and we're still friends, like we, made it through and everything, but understanding that this is how human beings work. We project. And I think you and I are really good at naming gremlins, which is a form of projection that's just not so blended, right? And then when it gets really blended, just making space to hear what that's like for the other person.
Yeah. Yeah.
And to keep, I know this week you said something about, and I know I feel this because I go aloof, right? And I go to cocooning or turtling or whatever we want to call it. And when you do have safety and a lot of love in a friendship, I know it's been important for me, especially recently, to fight that urge a little bit to isolate and to be able to bring it and speak the gremlins and speak the vulnerable parts and talk about needing a good self-care routine, right? Yeah. Because it's a lot of energy, emotional energy to hold within yourself. And even that feels like I'm honored that you would include me in being able to hold some of this space for you when I can, right? When I have capacity. Yeah. Which was our last recording was all about that. And I've had a decent amount of capacity lately.
Yeah. And from my perspective, I'm really working on showing up for myself. And so that shift of, it's hard for me too to not have embarrassment and probably some shame. And what the shame says, I should have known better, and no wonder why I've had challenges in previous relationships. And what I know is these are survival mechanisms, and that the only way out is through, and that for some reason I'm able to do this work right now with you. You know, if you would have asked me 6 months ago if I thought I was having a reenactment with you or that I was being anything but me and authentic in our relationship, I really felt like I was very clean and present with you. And I just wasn't ready, able to see like this other layer of healing. And so really working on having compassion, because I tend to feel very exposed and then I feel embarrassed and then I kind of want to pull away because I'm not doing it, quote, right. But seeing how much I count on you for regulation and for feeling okay, it feels like a very young place that, you know, I want you to be everything that I never got. And while you can be some of that, right now it feels like I'm pulling way. I feel like I just don't even have language. The words I have are like I'm pulling way back, but it's not that I'm pulling away from you. I'm really pulling into myself for the things that I never got, that you've been providing for me. The challenge is if I continue to go to you for those things in the way that I have been, when you're not able to meet them, it's very, very upsetting to me. It almost like it recreates trauma for me that I'm trying to get you to fill a role that you can't fill because somebody else couldn't fill it. And then it puts me into a trauma response. And then that creates tension in our relationship because I'm mad that you're not meeting this need and it's not your job. And so I was thinking this morning, like it feels, again, I'm struggling with my language. I don't have better language. When I'm unmasked, I feel like I'm free to just say and do whatever I want and to show up freely. And I feel very, tears.
Mm.
There's like a sense.
Take your time. Yeah.
There's a sense of being very conscious and mindful about where am I going to get my needs met, and doing more of that work internally. And I feel, because it's mindful and conscious, it feels very similar to masking. And I also know that I'm in this heightened place right now around my attachment wounds and seeing how my OCD gets into thinking loops about relationships. And when I get to this place, it's not the thoughts are not positive. And I'll share a little bit more about what they are as we talk a little bit more. And I need to make my world a little smaller because I'm so vulnerable and so sensitive right now that I kind of need to cocoon a little bit. And it's not that I'm withdrawing or pulling back, but I'm not in a place where I'm able to be as open because I feel like I'm injured and hurt so easily because I'm in the middle of a healing process. It's like the wound. The wound doesn't have a scab on it yet. And so it's my job to make sure that, I don't go in the ocean with an open scab and the world is like an ocean. But I don't feel like I have that freedom in what I would normally like check in with you or call you or connect with you multiple times a day, that I'm really trying to work on when I wake up in the morning to get grounded and centered and to figure out where am I at? What am I needing? What do I want my day to look like? What do my parts need? How can I show up for myself, as opposed to kind of getting a polar from you right away and falling right into that and kind of allowing myself to regulate with where you're at. And so really needing to create that for myself. And I like it and it's good. And I'm just in the middle of it right now. And so there's not a sense of ease or being relaxed. And because, tangibly speaking, we FaceTime Saturday morning. And then I think we talked yesterday morning, correct? I think so.
Oh, gosh.
We did. We did.
Mm-hmm. I know we talked Saturday morning too.
And then yesterday was Monday morning.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
But normally prior to this, we talk daily, sometimes a couple times a day, not always, but that was more the rhythm. And so there's been more space. And what happens with my OCD and my thinking is I defend myself because I think that you're mad at me because I'm not showing up. And what I suspect is that I'm angry at you for not showing up. Not that you're doing anything wrong, but I think that that's too intolerable for me. But then I want to start having these looping conversations in my head where, you're angry at me and like I'm defending myself. That's my OCD. And I think this has been going on for a really long time for me, but not specifically with you, but this is what my coping mechanism is, that my trauma and my OCD create this looping behavior. Or having an opportunity to be very aware when it happens, to go like, let's stop and let's not go there, and then I pull in and use kind of my higher self to talk to myself about what's going on. I'm afraid, I'm hurt. And then having to have a reassuring presence on board internally that like, I haven't done anything wrong and I'm working through trauma and it's okay that there's space, and knowing that things haven't changed between us. But because I have like no warm, fuzzy feelings in my body about anything right now. Like there's just nothing. And that makes it hard. And a lot of what our relationship has been is being able to carry that sense of connection that I have to you and the warm feelings. And when I'm processing trauma, there's not a lot of that. And so I have to consciously keep walking myself through kind of using this loving inner guidance that I'm okay, we're okay, everything's okay, needing to do reality checks. But it takes a lot of energy. And I do have these doubts that come up, and seeing how much I often indulge in those thoughts or the looping thinking because there wasn't anything safe to do when I was a child. Or, nobody said, tell me about your feelings, tell me how you're feeling. I'm here for it. You can be angry, you can be mad, you can be sad. So my system had to create a way in my head to think and to count and to try and regulate those big, big emotions. So it makes sense. But oof,
absolutely.
I got to tell you, it's just bleeping hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. Wow, you really articulating that beautifully. It's hard because I don't know that we always have the languaging for it. And so much of it is like so somatic.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, can you really describe like a strawberry and what it tastes like to someone?
Yeah.
It's like it's an experience. And then you're like, oof, I know that experience.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's been so much uncertainty, with my son being in the military and not hearing from him, and getting news almost 2 weeks ago, a week and a half ago, that I'm not going to share what it is, but some potentially very, very devastating news, and then not being able to hear. So between that and what I'm processing in our relationship that has nothing to do with our relationship, this awareness of OCD, that there's just not a lot of room for uncertainty or more change. And yesterday when I met with my coach, so I'm going to be really vulnerable with y'all, and I don't know if she listens to the podcast. So if you listen to this, please come and talk to me about it. So there's a new group that I'm paddling with on a different night and an earlier time. And I like it because the other group, I love paddling at night, but there's no parking when I get home. It's dark. My stuff is wet. I'm tired. I like my routine. So this group that goes earlier, and I change my work schedule. Again, if you're one of my clients and I ask you to change and we need to talk about it, feel free. And I got a message yesterday morning that could we start an hour later? And just with everything that's going on, my immediate response is like, internally was like, no more change. And when I talked to my coach, I was crying, like, I can't tolerate any more change. Everything feels uncertain, like I need certainty.
Yeah.
So what I did for this person is I wrote a text and said, can I get back to you later today? And then I was trying to sort it out with my coach of, is this my need for sameness? Is this my rigidity? Is this my OCD? Is this my PDA? And it was kind of nice that what she said is, if I heard her correctly, is there's so much going on right now that we don't have to know what it is, and that this is not what my baseline is. And normally, if there's security in the relationship, I have the ability to be flexible and to adapt. And we tried to kind of look at what was going on. But the bottom line is my nervous system cannot handle any more change. And bless my husband's heart, I talked to him and I said, if I knew I was able to go paddle by myself, I'm capable of it, but my ability to get my body to the bay by myself and paddle is just not great right now. Then that's what I would do. And he said, I'm happy to go down to the bay with you. So I said, great. So my day is very open today. So I texted her and said, listen, I don't have a lot of work tomorrow. I'm going to go paddle earlier so you can paddle later. And I don't want to be the person that holds you up. And it was very sweet because she texted back and said, hey, I'm happy to launch at the same time. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to launch at this time. The other person that's paddling is fine launching at that time. And my response was, I don't want to be that person that ruins it for everybody. So I'm going to trust that we're good to launch at the regular time. And if you decide otherwise, that's fine. Just let me know. And it was very reassuring to me for a couple of reasons that I had a plan and told her that I'm just going to go earlier. So she was not being held to anything that I needed. And it actually made me feel a little bit good that we're going to just stick to the plan and not change it. I think because of my own PDA, my own pervasive drive for autonomy, as much as I want things to be the same, I don't want anybody else to feel limited or constricted by my inability right now to change. And so my value is always, and even, with us being in this, I don't have words for it, whatever's going on between you and I as I'm working through my attachment injuries and asking for time, or I'm also wanting you to do what works for you, that I'm not wanting my needs to be a burden, a limitation, even though I'm saying I'm having a hard time and I'm needing some connection. Like, I can tell you that, but I'm not wanting you to feel limited or restricted by that. That's my PDA. So it's just been a lot to parse through. It's just been a lot.
I just want to comment on that last thing you said. Like, I know that. I mean, I feel that. And one of the beautiful things I think about our connection and our friendship is that, we both can be true at the same time, right? And we've definitely looked at us having competing needs. And a lot of it is in this very, I think, formatively, especially early on in our friendship, really framed in it's a function of where we are in life, that some of the differences that we have, and it's not us necessarily, right? As much as it is our contexts and what's going on for us. But I always, through all of this, feel very loved and supported and very free, right? Those are my three. It's like with my kids too. I'm like, those are my three values, right? Loved, supported, and free. And I definitely feel that. So as a counterbalance to, if I may speak for some of your gremlins, right, that feel that you're too much or burdensome, or like, these are not your words, they're my words,
It
like,
works.
but taking a lot of the oxygen, right? Like,
Yeah.
I'm not experiencing that over here.
Yeah.
It's just creating space, right? Emotional space, curiosity, patience, right? Which is space in time. Yeah. I feel very much it's reciprocal and it works.
Thank you. It's hard with my nervous system being so dysregulated. Yeah, it's a tearful day today.
Yeah.
It's very hard for me to just feel grounded and have a sense of who I am. And I'm dealing with this duality of knowing that I have a right to take up space and to take up more space and to ask for what I want. And I did with you last week. I asked for what I wanted, but that also activates I hate having needs in my PDA and then feeling pissed and angry that I have needs and that I have to ask for anything. And because I'm in this very vulnerable place, I mean, even the time from, I think you left me a polo and said, hey, if you want to FaceTime, let me know. And then I texted you in the morning, and the time from when I texted you until you responded, like, that feels like it's a million years. And in this place where my nervous system is so dysregulated, it's so easy for me to go into a place of feeling rejected or wanting to make up a story about what does that time mean? And it was interesting that sometime in the last couple of days, I talked with you and was able to tell you kind of the gremlins that were going on in my head that are related to my attachment injuries. And then the next time we talked, I was having feelings about not having heard from my son. And this is not about him. He's at boot camp. He needs to be doing what he's doing. So I want to be very clear that this is not about anything that he's doing. But when I expressed to you how I was feeling, I found myself saying the same words. I don't matter. I'm not being centered. I do all this stuff and then I'm not prioritized. My needs aren't prioritized. I'm never prioritized. And I thought it was very interesting that this wound is coming up, and really those are the feelings of the original wound. I don't matter. I'm not being centered. My feelings aren't being taken into account. And because those never got to be expressed because it wasn't okay, that now I'm just looking for relationships where I experience that and then put it on the relationship. And that's where those feelings that have been frozen kind of come back to life. And so being very present to, yes, it's coming up in these relationships, but it's not the relationship that it's happening. And two things, I can see how this has been a burden in previous relationships. And even though I have this obsessive thinking and expecting to be somebody come at me, people have. I have gotten that you're being too much. What you're wanting is not okay. And I don't even have language that comes up in my mind right now, but that has been a reality. And so there's also this double wounding on top of it, and not having the awareness or insight that I was, trying to work things through, because that's what we do. We want to reenact things so that we recreate the wounding so that we can try and heal it. But we often pick people that don't have the ability to do the healing. So we just continue to recreate the wounding over and over again, and it doesn't change.
Right. And not necessarily having the perspective that what the messages we're getting about ourselves are actually the other person becoming defensive, or, that it's about kind of where they're at. That's and one of the strengths of the parts work is that chaperoning, speaking for parts instead of from parts.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm fascinated by projection, fascinated my own and others, and we all do it. It's so human.
Can you talk a little bit more about what you mean when you say projection? Because I'm not sure that everybody has the same understanding that you do. And do you have a concrete example?
Well, I think, I'm imagining what you were saying about you're the one that's angry, right? And you need to process some of that anger. And what's happening is you're projecting that I'm angry.
Right.
So you're still grappling with anger.
Right.
We have those mirror neurons. So whether it's my anger or your anger, you're still relating to it, and then you're safe in your fawn response, right? Which is I know we get kind of hard on ourselves, or I think you and I have both had conversations about that, but it's a valid option when your nervous system pulls these strategies like so quickly.
Yeah.
You're not even you're not like, let's choose the fawn. Well, no, it all happens like way before that. But from that safety, being able to work through or experience or wrestle a little bit with anger, someone else's anger, right? Now, if you're comfortable with being angry, then you may project something else. It might be vulnerability or, some hurt or something like that.
Yeah.
Did that do it?
Yeah, no, that was perfect. That was perfect. How I process information is different than you. And as you described, like, oh yeah, I am projecting my anger onto you thinking that you're angry. But if you'd asked me to explain it, I don't conceptualize it that way. So I think this is where it's really good when we talk about these things, because I think some of the listeners relate more to how you process and express, and some relate to how I do. So when we can have these conversations, I think it's helpful. And I wouldn't have thought like, oh yeah, that is projection.
Another good one is the inner critic. How often it's like it's our own inner critic standing over someone else's shoulder with a bullhorn and we're imagining that person's being critical of us when it's really our own inner criticism coming right back at us. That's a projection.
Yeah. Yeah.
And why reality testing is so important. Or, I've been doing it at your suggestion, your support and your love, being able to name my gremlins as I have them with people, not just you, who I find it easy with at this point, but when it's harder to do it, so that's a great way. I have this gremlin that's telling me that you're thinking blah, 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 right, about something. And it just hits the air, right? Get a chance to shine some light on it. The other person could be like, really? That's what you think I think?
Yeah.
And it's like, it's not about them. It's my own. Like, our minds just love to tell stories.
Yeah. My poor little nervous system is very, very, very dysregulated right now.
Okay.
And so I think what I probably need to do is to wrap up the recording so I can take care of myself.
Yes.
But I can hold it together for a few more minutes. Is there anything that you're needing or wanting to say?
No, just having a real desire to be here for you and wanting to honor wrapping it up, wanting to offer. You just want to breathe together for a few minutes. I'm here for all of it, either while recording or off recording. I'm here.
Yeah. I know you are.
If you want to give me a hand signal, I can close this up.
Yeah, why don't you close us up?
Okay.
And to the listeners, I'm really okay. I'm feeling flooded with feelings right now. What will probably happen when we get off is I'm going to have a big cry, which really helps. And that helps to regulate my nervous system. But I feel like I could jump out of my skin right now. Like I just feel like my whole nervous system is really activated, and I'm okay with that. And I will be okay. So I don't want you to worry. And my hope is that this is just good modeling about like we can be in our stuff. Obviously, I don't know that having a podcast and talking about it on the podcast may not be the best choice. I am having some questions about that. But my hope is that this is helpful, that this is not what we get to see people do very much. And my hope is that this modeling will be helpful and instrumental in validating and normalizing that, we can do hard things, we can have big feelings, we can be dysregulated, and we can also take care of ourselves.
Yeah. And just that it's safe to feel that full range of human emotions fully, and I got you. I'm willing to stay on and hold some space. I mean, that's a lot of what we do for each other when we need it. And maybe this is the episode we don't use. That's all up to you. You're empowered here, right? So thank you. I want to recognize again, like that's always been your mission, and that this is really a labor of love for you to share really vulnerable parts of yourself so that other people maybe feel a little less lonely about it. So I just want to wrap up by saying thank you for that. You've got a impressive catalog here of doing it.
Thanks,
so thank
Jen.
you, my friend. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, everybody. Have a great day.
Bye.
Hey again. So how was that for you? How is it for you when you hear me cry? Does that upset you? Does it dysregulate you? Do you feel seen and heard? My hope is that it's not dysregulating. Chances are if you're still here, then it wasn't that bad. I don't know. So I had a big cry. And while I was crying, Jen told me it was okay if I was mad at her. I think I really have a hard time with anger in this situation. It wasn't safe for me when I was young to be angry. It was not. And it's so much easier for me to go into a fearful place or a fawning place. And, just how uncertain things are. And even as Jen and I talked, I just continue to be very tearful and cry. And it's hard. This is not my baseline. I'm not going to be here for forever. I'm going to be here for as long as I need to be. And we really ended up having a chance to talk about some things that are going on in our friendship that I told Jen I would fly her out for her birthday, which is in April. And we didn't talk about it. We are talking about it now. And I'm supposed to go out in the fall. And we just talked about a lot of these things that we're not talking about and where we're at in our relationship and how to make these changes. And there was something that Jen said to me a couple days ago, and she said it again on the phone today, or when we were on video, and it really pokes one of my wounds. And I think it's okay to share about this. I think it'll be okay. She said, I have a lot of people that are wanting me, a lot of people wanting attention from me. And I told her that really hits with my OCD and my wound, because I feel like I'm one of the very few people. That's not fair. I'm one of the very few people in Jen's inner circle. I'm just making a mess out of this. I'm very respectful of Jen's time and her honoring herself. I'm very clear about that. And because of my PDA, because of my attachment wounds, I'm always very mindful about, what do you need to do for you? Do you have time? Do you have space? So I'm very clear that I am not someone who is sucking her time and energy. And because she said it twice, that part of my brain and the OCD and something else that we talked about wanted to start creating a new narrative about how I'm too much and there's no room for me. And I was able to tell her that that's what was going on, and asked if she could maybe come up with a corrective statement, because the first statement came from her that I was needing something else. And we went on to talk and process about a number of other things. But what it came around to at the end was that I am in her inner circle and that she wants me there and wants to give time and energy to me. And sometimes prioritizing who gets time and energy is a challenge for her. And what I'm going to need to do is to continue to repeat that to myself, because the OCD, Jen said, I don't know a lot about OCD. She said it's anxiety driven. I think it's trauma. Trauma creates anxiety, and then the mind wants to find a way to manage the anxiety. So I am hoping that I will not be in this fragile, vulnerable place for too long. I am paddling today, and I did paddle on Sunday. Today is Tuesday. And I paddled about over 3 miles nonstop at a pretty good clip, probably between 3 and 6 miles an hour without stopping. It was a little bit under an hour, and I just needed that to burn off some energy. So it is a challenging time right now. There are some really beautiful things that are going on. Really, this conversation that Jen and I had was very, very helpful. And, we're making some pivots in our relationship and changes, and me speaking my truth. And she said she really needed to hear that. So it's all good stuff. It's just a work in progress. I hope this is helpful for you. I don't know how well I can do on this next part, so you're just going to get what you're going to get today. Remember, sensitivity is nothing to apologize for. It's how your brain is wired. You have a right to be emotional, dysregulated, projecting, in your stuff, to really be struggling, as long as you're safe and you're not in danger and you're not suffering in a way that you shouldn't be suffering. If you are, please reach out for help. I never want people to not be doing well. But it's also okay to be in a place where it's hard and to be connected and to make your world small. Wherever you're at is okay. If you're feeling joy and peace and contentment and you're feeling connected and satisfied, that is fine. You are not for everybody. Everyone is not for you. You have a right to show up however you show up, whether you're attuned or not attuned, thoughtful, not thoughtful. All parts of you are okay. That's all I got for you today. Have a blessed day.